So we'll start here on page 17a. And we just started the second parak. And in the Mishnah, we learned that you cannot read the Megillah backwards. Backwards meaning you have to read chapter 1, chapter 2, verse 1, verse 2. It has to be done in the right order. You can't read lemafreya. You can't read it backwards. It has to be done in the order the way it is written. So now we learned in a brayso, Tana. We learned in a brayso. V'chein b'halel, v'chein b'kriyas shema. The same thing is true by Hallel. When you say the Hallel, Hallel, of course, is the chapters of Tehillim that we say and call the Hallel. So when we say the Hallel, you also have to say it in the order. You cannot say the next chapter before the first chapter. You have to say it in no verse, the second verse before the first verse. You have to give it in the order the way you said. And the Chen B'Kriyat Shema. The same thing is when you read the Shema. The Shema has to be read in the verses. First comes Shema Yisrael, then comes V'ahavta. You can't change around the order. And the same thing is Ubit Tfilah. Same thing is the davening. The 18 brachas that we have in the davening, you have to say them in the order, the way the pasuk tells you. You have to do it all in the order. First comes the birchas avos, then gevuras, and so on and so forth. The Gemara now is going to explain the way that each one of these halachas, that by Hallel and by Shema and by Tefillah, that you have to say it in the order the way it was set up. First, the Gemara starts with Hallel Minola. How do we know Hallel? So Rabbi says, and this is the pasuk actually in the Hallel, and this is the Tehillim in Perek Kuf Yud Gimel. Over there in the very first chapter of the Hallel, we say, Mi Mizrach Shemesh ad Mevoye. From where the sun shines until it sets. The sun shines from the east and it sets in the west. The pasuk says, Mi Mizrach Shemesh ad Mevoye Mehulol Shem Hashem. The Hallel of the Shem Hashem. We praise Hallel of the name of Hashem, just like we Mizrach Shemesh ad Mevoye. So from there we see that you have to do the Hallel in order, just as the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And the order is always the same. That's why the order of the Hallel has to be the same. Let's look in Rashi. Mimizrach Shemesh ad Mevoye, says Rashi, Kishem sheshkias uzrichas achamo, just as the sun setting and the shining of the sun, lo yahafu, or not switched around. I think Rashi starts off with the word set, because the set comes after. Rashi's trying to say it doesn't set before it shines, or it doesn't set in a different place. You cannot switch around. In other words, it doesn't set and then come from the west and shine in the east. It doesn't change around that way. The same thing is we say, Mehulo Shem Hashem. That's the way we praise Hashem. We don't praise Hashem backwards. That's how we know that we have to do in the order. Hallel has to be done in the order. That's one pasuk. That's the Rabbi's opinion. Then we have the next opinion. Rabbi Yosef Amar. Rabbi Yosef says he brings a pasuk in Tehillim, and that's a little further on in the Hallel. You say Zeh Hayoim Osa Hashem. This is the day that Hashem made. The full pasuk. Megillah v'nismach bo. Let us rejoice and be happy in this day. So over here we also say this day. A day goes in an order. First comes the first hour, the second hour. So that's the way you praise Hashem. Zahayoim. Keseder hayoim, as the order of the day. She'ena mishtane v'sha'oisov. Lehepech. That it does not change to switch the opposite hours. Hour 2 comes after hour 4. Hour 3 comes after hour 2. It goes in an order. Likewise, lemafreya loy, you can't read the Hallel backwards. Okay, another pasuk. Rabbi Avia Omar, he brings another pasuk. He says, the pasuk, it says, Yehi Shem Hashem Mevorach. This is also in the pasuk in the Parak in Kuf Yud Gimel in the first chapter. It says, "Let the name of Hashem be blessed." The word Yehi means let it be the way it is. Keep it in the order the way it is. So therefore, that's the verse that he uses to tell us that you have to say the Hallel in the right order. Yehi Shem Hashem Mevorach kehaviyose Yehi. As it is, that it should be that way. Hilul Hashem ubirchosei. The way you praise Hashem and you bless Him has to be kisidroi in its order. So it's the third opinion. Now, fourth opinion, they give another view, and they say mehocha from this pasuk. It's the same pasuk as before. Over there it says Yehi Shem Hashem Mevorach me'ato v'yad olam. From here and forever. Also means it has to go from here to ever. Start with point A and go to the next point. So it has to be in this order. Okay, so that's how we learn the various different psukim, how we learn that you need to go specifically in the order by saying the Hallel. These are all psukim that we find by the Hallel, in which it implies that the blessings and the praise and Hallel needs to be in the order. Okay. Now the Gemara goes over to Kriya Shema. How do we know that Kriya Shema, the verses have to be in order? So the Gemara brings the Tanya. The Gemara quotes a Brisa. First, the Gemara brings a question over here, how a disagreement, how one can read the Shema. The first opinion, Rebbe says, Kriya Shema, the reading of the Shema, we know we have an obligation twice a day to read the Shema. So Rebbe's opinion is Kichsova, as it was written, just as it was written in Lashon Kodesh, in the Holy Tongue, so it has to be recited only in Lashon Kodesh. The Shema Yisrael needs to be said in only Lashon Kodesh. But that's not the halacha, that's Divrei Rebbe. That's the opinion of Rebbe. We'll see the Chacham disagree, the halacha is like the Chacham. Kichsava, as it's written. So Rashi, what do we mean? The Lashon HaKodesh, the Loi B'Lashon Achar, only in Lashon Kodesh, and not in any other language. But some will see what does it have to do with the order. That will come in a minute. But right now we're bringing down a brisa which says you can say the Shema in any language. you can read the Shema. You don't have to be only in Lashon Kodesh. So the Gemara asks, my time of the Rebbe. So what's the reasoning for Rebbe? Why does Rebbe say that you can read it only in the Lashon Kodesh? Omar Kra, the pasuk says, we're turning the page now to 17b. So Omar Kra, the pasuk says in the Varim, it says V'hoyu hadvarim ha'ela. V'hoyu means they shall be. They shall be as they are. V'haviyosam yiyu. They should remain. They shall be means they should be the way they are. Just the way they are means that in Lashon Kodesh. They need to be in Lashon Kodesh. V'hoyu hadvarim ha'aviyosam. Sagt Rashi, b'Lashon HaKodesh, in Lashon Kodesh. Okay, that's his verse. Pray the Gemara v'Rabbanon my time. What's the reason for the Rabbanon? Why do the Rabbanon say that you can read it in any language? Omar Kra, because the pasuk says Shema. Shema means listen. Listen means b'chol lashon she'ata shemaya. As long as you understand, as long as you're hearing. If it's hearing it, then that's okay. You don't need anything else but to understand it, or any language that you hear is fine. Okay. So those are verses that the Gemara brought for each one's opinion. Frag the Gemara, the Rebbe, Nami, Oksiv Shema. The Gemara says, but Rebbe, what is he going to say? He says that it means only in Lashon Kodesh because it says V'hoyu, but the pasuk says Shema. Shema means here, would imply any language. And the Gemara says, well, that pasuk of Shema is coming to teach you something else. Hahu niboyule. That's needed. The pasuk Shema, we need to tell you, listen means hashma la'oznecha. Let your ears hear that what you take out from your mouth, which basically means when you say the Shema, you have to hear. You can't say it silently. You must hear it. So that's what he learns from the Shema. Not that you can use any language. You have to use Lashon Kodesh, but Shema means you have to listen in the language that you understand or that you say, but you have to make sure that your ears hear what that which you take out from your mouth. Okay. Okay, so that's how Rebbe has the pasuk of Shema tells him that you have to hear what you're saying. And the pasuk of V'hoyu tells him that you have to say it only in Lashon Kodesh. Frag the Gemara v'Rabbanon. But it says here, how is he going to know the halacha? Since they're saying that Shema means that you have to listen to it in any language you can say it. So where do they know the halacha that you have to hear what you're saying? And the Gemara says, no, they don't. They disagree with that halacha. For the Gemara v'Rabbanon, the Gemara says, Sabri Kamanda Omar. They go like the opinion that says, Hakoyre Shema b'lo yishmi la'oznei. One who reads the Shema and he did not have his ear hear what he said, he rules that yotza. You fulfilled your obligation. So therefore, he doesn't have a pasuk for that because there's no obligation to hear. So according to the Rabbanon, the Shema, it tells us only that any language is okay. Okay. So now the Gemara says, but still, Rebbe has a pasuk of V'hoyu, which teaches him that you can have to say it as they hear in that language. So v'Rabbanon nami, but also Rabbanon oksiv v'hayu. But it says v'hayu, which would mean they need to be in a specific order. That you have to, but that it has to be as is, meaning in Lashon Kodesh, like Rebbe says. How are they going to get out of that? And the Gemara says no. Here we have the reason why we brought down the whole Bryce over here. The Rabbanan say the reason we say V'hoyu, not it should be as is, not to tell us that you have to read it in Lashon Kodesh, but to tell us you have to read as is without doing the second verse before the first verse. You have to do it in order. Hahu mi boile, that verse of V'hoyu it needs shlo yikra l'mafreya. So we see that according to the Chachamim, we can't read it backward. That's why the Gemara said before that Shema has to be written in the order, because this goes like the Chachamim. Shelo yikra l'mafreya, almo kriya Shema l'mafreya loy. So we see from here that reading the Shema backward you can't do. And this is the place from here, the previous Tana who said that you have to read the order of the Shema, he learns it from here, from the V'hoyu, as the Rabbanan do with the Pasuk V'hoyu. All right. Fragt Gemara, but the Rebbe. But Rebbe, shelo yikra l'mafrei minole. So where does Rebbe know that one can't read backwards? Since Rebbe uses the pasuk v'hoyu to tell us that you have to read only in Hebrew, so how does he have a pasuk that you have to read it only in this order? We're already using it, that you have to do it in Hebrew, in Lashon Kodesh, and not any other language. So where does he know? Where does he know that you're not allowed to read the Shema backwards? And the Gemara says he learns it from the extra hay, because the pasuk says v'hoyu dvorim, v'hoyu hadvorim. Could have said v'hoyu dvorim ha'ela asher anochi, or v'hoyu dvorim ela asher anochi. Why does it say v'hoyu hadvorim, an extra hay? So dvorim hadvorim, because it's an extra hay, he learns both things. He says you're not allowed to do it. These words have to be said in order, and they have to be said in Lashon Kodesh. So what about the Rabbanon? They have an extra hay. And the Gemara says, Devarim hadvarim lemashmalim. It doesn't appear to them that this is a drasha. It says, V'hoyu hadvarim. That's what it's written, but it's not an extra drasha. So therefore, they only use the pasuk of V'hoyu to tell you that you can't read backwards. They don't use that pasuk for only reading the Shema in Hebrew. And because the Torah says Shema, it means any language. So that's why it's good over there too. Okay? Well, why would Rebbe need a pasuk to tell you that you have to read the Shema in Hebrew? So should that mean that all the Torah was given in all languages? And he's telling you, no, this has to be in Hebrew. So Lema, shall we say that Kosova Rebbe, that Rebbe holds, that Kol HaTorah Kula B'chol Lashon Emra, that the entire Torah was given to be read in all languages. So whenever we have to read something from the Torah, you can read any languages. And the only restriction is by Shema, because that's why the Torah says Vahoyu. No, according to Rebbe, this has to be done in Hebrew, which implies that everything else where we don't have a special requirement, Vahoyu, that it has to be done in Hebrew, can be done in any language. Let's go to Rashi. B'chol loshen emra, so Rashi likroisa, b'chol loshen, that you are able to read it in every language. V'lochein, itzrich b'kriya shma, v'hoyu. That's why he needs, by kriya shma, that it should say over there, v'hoyu. And the Gemara continues. If you enters your mind that all of Torah was said and has to be read in Lashon Kodesh, so why does the Torah specifically by the Shema have to write that you have to do it in Hebrew if all the Torah you have to do in Hebrew? And the Gemara says no. That we have a special reason why we have to say it in Hebrew. Because the Torah needs to write here B'hoyu. Because Salka Daitoch Shma Kirabon. By us, we have a problem. The Torah had to write B'hoyu since the Torah says Shema, and Shema the Rabbanon interpreted as meaning any language. So the Torah has to write Kos V'Rachmona B'hoyu. So the Torah has to write that they shall be, that it should be only Hebrew, so you don't misinterpret Shema like the Rabbanon. Itzrich v'hoyu, Deloy Tema, Shema b'chol loshen, Sh'ata shemeya k'Rabbanon. So that you don't say in every language like the Rabbanon say. So because it already says Shema, it has to say V'hoyu. Really, all of the Torah, you don't have to say only, all of the Torah you have to say also B'Lashon Kodesh. Why do we need a special pasuk here by Shema that you have to say B'Lashon Kodesh? It's because over here there's Shema, and Shema could be misinterpreted like the Rabbanon, says Rebbe, that it could go only in that it can be in any language. That's why we need a pasuk that's to be Lashon Kodesh. But the truth of the matter is that all of Torah has to be Lashon Kodesh, possibly. Itzrich v'hoyu, we need the pasuk v'hoyu, the loy tema, so that you don't say that Shema b'chol loshen shata shemei. Don't say that Shema means in any language that you hear. K'Rabbanon, as the Rabbanon say. So, therefore, we need the V'hoyu. But really, we'll tell you the Torah always has to be done in Lashon Kodesh. Here we need a special pasuk V'hoyu because it says Shema, and therefore you could make a mistake. Okay, now the Gemara is going to ask by the Rabbanon. Leimrok kosabri Rabbanon kol ha'Torah b'Lashon HaKodesh nemra. So the Rabbanon, maybe they hold that all of the Torah you can read in every language, only in Lashon Kodesh, and that's why we need a special pasuk to tell us Shema you can read in every pasuk. Leima, shall we say that kosabri Rabbanon, the Rabbanon hold that kol ha'Torah kul b'Lashon HaKodesh nemra, that all of the Torah was written in Lashon Kodesh. Why? It must be that way because if it enters your mind, if you think that all of Torah you can do, you can read the Torah in any language, all of Torah. Why does the Torah have to write here that you can read it in every language? All of the Torah you can read in every language. And the Gemara says no. Itzrich over here, we need the pasuk of Shema. Even if we're going to say that all of the Torah you have to read, that you can read it with any language. But still the Torah over here has to tell you that you can read it only in Hebrew, even though all of the Torah is also said with Lashon Kodesh. Why? Why do we need this pasuk here? Because because it can enter your mind. The Rebbe says that you have to read it because there's also the pasuk V'hoyu. To tell you that you can do it in any language. Okay, so this is the verses that we have. According to the Rabbanon, we have to read the Shema in every language, and we need a special pasuk for this because it says V'hoyu, so maybe you think only in Lashon Kodesh. And the same thing is according to the Rebbe. He says you have to read it specifically in Shema, in Lashon Kodesh, but because there is also the word Shema, you might think that you could do it in any language. That's what we need to specify. All right. Now we'll go on to the next part. We'll go on to Tefillah. The Gemara, Tefillah Minola. Where do we know that the davening, the Amidah, the brachas have to be said in exact orders the way they were set up? And we'll also learn now how all the brachas came about to be, the brachas that we do in the Amidah. So the Gemara says, Tefillah Minola. How do we know Tefillah that we can't do it lemafreya? We can't do it backwards. We have to do it in that order. So the Gemara says the Tanya. Learned in the Braisa. Shimon ha-pikuli. Pikuli is cotton. Some people, Rashi will say down that this Shimon dealt with cotton. That was his business. So they called him Shimon the Pikuli, or that's just a name. But that's what Rashi suggests, called Shimon Pikuli. So it says Shimon ha-pikuli. He's the Shmoina Esre Brachas Lifnei Rabbi Gamliel. He set up the 18 brachas in front of Rabbi Gamliel, al haseder, based on the order of the verses. And this was in Yavne. So while Rabbi Gamliel was in Yavne, Shimon HaPikuli, he organized the 18 brachas. We actually have 19 brachas now that was added later on, a new bracha, but the Lamashinim, but the original was 18 brachas. So he organized these 18 brachas in front of Rabbi Gamliel on the order of the psukim in Yavne. Allah Seder. Zok Rashi, ki mishpat hamikroes. As the rule by the psukim, as we see from the verses, come on, the Gemara is going to now give us all the psukim later on. Why did they call them hapikuli? So Rashi, yesh oimrim, there are some that say shemishtakir b'tzemer gefen shenikra pikula, that his business, his earning, he was learning by dealing with cotton wool. That's called pikula. That's why they call them Shimon hapikuli. Cottonwood is called cotton wool is called pikula. So, so what was this order? Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, some say that this is in the Braisa. That what? That Meya ve'esrim zikenim. That there were 120 elders, the sages. That was the Anshe Knesses Agdola. It was the man of the great gathering. It was 120 elders, sages. Ubahem, amongst them were Kamanivim. There were several prophets. Tiknu Shmoine Esrei Broches Allah Seder. They organized the 18 blessings on the order. So basically, we see here that these brachas have to be in the order they all organized. How exactly? Rashi refers to it, we'll see later on. It's from the psukim, so therefore, because it goes in the order of the psukim. That's how they organized the brachas. That's why the brachas have to be said specifically in this order. You can't switch around the order. The Gemara quotes now a brayse. Ton Rabbanan. Minayin sha'omrim ovis. Where do we know that we say the bracha ovis? The very first brachas is called the brachas ovis of the fathers. So where do we know this from? Shenemar. This comes from the pasuk in Tilim. It says, Hovu Hashem b'nei Kalim. Mizmar leDavid, Hovu Hashem b'nei Elim, Hovu Hashem koved v'ois. What is the meaning of the word b'nei Elim? The sons of the strong. Give to Hashem, meaning praise Hashem. The sons of the Elim. Elim means the mighty. The mighty is a reference to our forefathers. They were mighty. They were strong. So, therefore, we say, Havul Hashem. What does it mean? Give to Hashem. So Rashi teaches, Haskiru lefonov. Mentioned before him. Give to Hashem means mention to Hashem as Elei Ha'aretz, the strong of the land, which is the Ovis. Those are called the Elei Ha'aretz. Okay, that's the source for the brachas of Ovis. Following that verse, Havul Hashem b'nei Kelim, it says Havul Hashem koved v'ois. Menayin she'imrim gevuris. Where do we know that we say the bracha of Ata Gibar La'olam Hashem? Shenemar, because the pasuk says following this, Havul Hashem b'nei Kelim, Havul Hashem kavod va'ois. Ois means strength, power. That's kavuris. So that's the second bracha that comes. First we have the birchas ovis, Elei Haaretz, then we have kavuris, the kavod va'ois. U'menayin she'imrin kedushas. Where do we say the kedushas? Because that continues later on, pasuk beis. It says, Havul Hashem kavod shmoi. Yishtachvu Hashem b'hadras kodesh. Give him the honor of his name, bow to him with kodesh. That's kedusha. Havul Hashem kavod shmoi. Yishtachvu Hashem b'hadras kodesh. So the Havul Hashem kavod shmoi is safe for the Kro b'hadras kodesh. So with awe or beauty of holiness. So that's kedusha. That's what we say for Hashem, Ata Kodesh, V'Shimcha Kodesh. So that's the bracha of Kodesh. Okay, so these three brachas basically come from Havul Hashem Koved V'Ois, Havul Hashem B'nei Elim, Havul Hashem Koved V'Ois, and Havul Hashem Koved Shmoi, Yishtachvu B'hadras Kodesh. Those are the first three brachas. Then we come to the bracha of Atachoinen La'odom Das. That's called Bina. Choneinu Mitcha Chochma Bina V'Das. Umaro Leimer Bina Achar Kedusha. Why did they see fit to say the bracha of Atachoinen La'odom Das after we say Kedusha? So that is based on the verse Shenemar in the Yeshaya Chavtes. It says like this. It says, "V'igdishu es Kedosh Yaakov." Let them sanctify the one that is holy to Yaakov. That's Hashem, Kedusha. V'eselikei Yisrael yaritzu. And like I say, Naritzoch, Nagdishcha, v'Naritzcha. V'samich lei. And then next to this pasuk in Yeshaya, it says, "V'yedu toye ruach bina," and those who are lost, spirit lost, will get understanding. So we see that bina comes after kedusha. That's why they made after kedusha. They said the bracha of Atochen and Lodem Das. What comes after Bina? Comes Slach Lanu. So that means you're asking for Tshuva. Why did they see fit to say Teshuvah? The Slach Lanu after after the Brach of Bina. Is that's based on the pasuk in Yeshaya. Over there it says, Ulevava Yavin. When your heart will understand, Vishav, then you will return, Virafaloi, and it's going to be healing to you. So you see that Teshuvah comes after understanding. So first you get understanding, and after you get understanding, then you get Teshuvah. So you have Teshuvah and understanding. So frag the Gemara. So in this pasuk, it seems like after tshuva comes what? Yavin, teshuva, should be refa'enu. What do we have? Slach lanu avinu kichatanu. Then you say re'enu v'onyenu, v'riv revenu. We have geula. Baruch Hashem, Goal Yisrael. So why don't we have the Brichas Rifa'enu afterwards in this order? Bina, Teshuva, then should come Rifa'enu right afterwards. In that case, let's just for 1 second open up a siddur so that we see clearly in the siddur. Let's just so we have Hashivenu. This is Bina, and then we have Hashivenu, and then we have Slach Lanu, and then between the Rifa'enu we have Goyal Yisrael. So that's what the Gemara is asking. The Gemara, Yochi Lema Refuah Basra de Tshuva. Refuah should come after Tshuva, not the bracha of Goyal Yisrael. Right after Slach Lanu should be Rifa'enu. And the Gemara says, Lo Yisal Kadaitach. That shouldn't enter your mind. The Ksiv, because it says, the Yoshev El Hashem, Virachameu. So he says, you'll return to Hashem and he will compassion you. Ve'el Elikenu ki yarvel lisleach. I'm not sure. So what is he? Let me see. What's the question? Lema Refuah Basra de Tshuva. No, I made a mistake. He's asking that the Rifa'enu should come right after Tshuva. Because in the order of the pasuk, it says Bina, Tshuva, and Rifa'enu. Why do we have Slach Lanu in the middle? Tshuva, then should come Rifa'enu. You following? Tshuva, and then Rifa'enu. And not Slach Lanu afterwards. Because the pasuk says Bina, Teshuva, and Refuah. This Teshuva is not the bracha Slach Lanu. This Teshuva is the bracha of Hashivenu v'in l'serusecha. So why do we skip the bracha of Hashivenu and Slachlonu and Re'eno, and then we say Rufeinu. We should say Rufeinu right after Hashivenu. And the Gemara says, no. The Ksiv, after you do Teshuvah, Hashem will forgive you. So the bracha of Slachlonu belongs after the bracha of Teshuvah, not the bracha of Refuah. So it turns out we have two psukim. In one pasuk it says after Teshuvah comes Refuah. In this pasuk it says after Teshuvah comes the L'Sloach, comes Slachlonu. Pray the Gemara, Umay Chaz is the Samchas Ahai. Aho. So why are you relying on this pasuk in which after Tshuva comes Slicha, Smoich Aho? Why don't you rely on this pasuk in which it says after Tshuva comes Refuah? If you're going by the psukim, why do you go after that pasuk and not on this pasuk? And the Gemara says there's another pasuk in addition. These are two psukim. There's another pasuk. In Tehillim Kuv Gimel it says. So over there it says Slayach. So you have the bracha of Slach Lanu, and then comes Haroife. So you see Refuah comes after Slach Lanu. And then Agoyel Mishachas Chayochi. So therefore, because of that pasuk, after Slach Lanu has to come Rufa'enu. And Rufa'enu doesn't come before Slach Lanu, because that's why it says in this pasuk, Slach Lanu, and then Nareif L'chol Tachloich. Now we still have an issue with this Hagoyel, Mishachas Chayochi, right? Because over here, Goyel Yisrael, Rufa'enu comes after Goyel Yisrael. Let's see what the Gemara says. So the Gemara says, Lememra, so will she say that the Geula Refuah Bosses Lichai? So it turns out that according to this pasuk, the Refuah and the Geula, first you're Saleach, then you have Refuah and Geula. That comes after Slicha. But the Gemara says, Voksiv, V'shav v'rafaloi, the pasuk said that as you turn, you're already healed. You don't have to wait for slicha. Comes out that after you do teshuvah, you should get the refuah right away. You don't have to wait for slachlonu like in it. Shall we say that the gula refuah comes only after slicha? V'ksiv v'shav v'rafaloi. But the other pasuk says, you do tshuva, you get healed right away. You don't have to wait for Hashem's forgiveness, for Hashem's slicha. The Gemara says Ahi, when it says Rafaloi, isn't talking about the refuah of healing the body. Lav refuah the tachluyini. It's not talking about healing from the sick. El refuah the slichai. The shav, when you do tshuva, the Rafaloi, Hashem will forgive you. Okay, so Emerson. So now we have so this pasuk. So therefore, refuah comes after teshuvah. No, comes after slicha. You have tshuva, slicha, and refuah. But now the seventh bracha is geula, right? The seventh bracha. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So why do we stick in geula? It almost seems that refuah geula. Fredi Gemara Umaro lemer geula b'shvis. And Rashi explains, "V'loy refuah achar slicha." We should have refuah immediately after slicha. K'diksiv, as the pasuk says in the pasuk, "Hasoy leyach l'chol avonochi." That as soon as Sarleach, then it comes Reife. And Hagoyel comes afterwards. Amarove, so Rove says, Metoich sha'asidin ligoel b'shviis. On the 7th year in that cycle, when Mashiach is coming, so there's cycles of 7. The redemption is going to be in the 7th cycle, 7th year in that cycle, and therefore lefikoch kavu b'shviis. That's why they made it the 7th. The 7th bracha, because the geula comes on the 7th. Let's see what Rashi says here. So Rashi, Shavua shemen David Boboy, that 7-year cycle in which when David comes, which Mashiach comes, Choluk Mishar Shonim, it's distinguished from other years. Kidamrinon v'perik chelik, that's I think Zayin Omad Aleph. So over there we say that Shana Rishona of that cycle will be hunger, Rov. And then it says Rov Eloi Rov. Hunger, not such a great hunger. Until the Gemara says there, Ubashvis Mulchamas. On the 7th year will be wars. Ubemoitzoi Shvis Ben David Ba. So on Motzoi Shvis comes Mashiach. By the way, we're in the 7th year now, cycle, so it's appropriate. So the Gemara asks, okay, so then it should be on the 7th year will be Muhammad, but it's going to be Motzoi Shvi Ben David Ba. The Gemara quotes this sentence. Bishish is koilis. On the 6th will be noise. Bishvi is Muhammad. The Motzoi Shvi Ben David Ba. So why we're doing it on the 8th? The Gemara answers, it's the beginning of the redemption, the wars. So maybe all the wars that are going on now in the world, and the Ukraine and everything else, maybe this is a signs of Mashiach, the beginning of the redemption. Hopefully. In any event. The Gemara says, "Chalta the Geula, va'af al gav, the high Geula, lav Geula." Rashi says when we're talking about the Geula in this Goyal Yisrael, what are we talking about here? Re'enov onyenu, look in our pain, v'rivrevenu, and judge our judgment. U'aleinu meir laman shmecha, take us out, redeem us. Talking about our tzoros. We're talking Hashem to redeem us from our problems. We're not talking about here redemption from Golus. So Rashi, V'afakav the Geula, lav Geula the Golusi. It's not a Geula of Golu exile. Elashi Golenu min atzoros haba aleinu tamid. That's to take us out from the tzoros that come in. Because the bracha for the Geula, those are the other bracha, the birchas Kibbutz, Kaptzenu, collect us in Yerushalayim, build Yerushalayim, with Tzemach David, the Spark of David. Yesh l'kol achas bracha b'fnei ha'atzma. Each one has its own bracha. We don't need the bracha. Levad me'geula zu, besides his geula. So why are we saying that because the redemption is going to happen at the 7th or the end of the 7th? That's why we're doing it in the 7th. But this is another bracha. This is not the geula. It's not talking about the redemption from the goats. And yet he says, Kivan the shem geula Allah, since it's named as geula, kavua b'shviz, they set it up on the 7th bracha. Okay, let's leave it over here and just give over a short word of the parsha. So, of course, this week, we read the parshas of Bahaloscha. Bahaloscha is Haneris, in which the Kohen Gadol lit the lamps. Now we know that the lamps were made out of one menorah, was made out of one piece of gold. It was molded into the different branches. It was a difficult task, representing all different 7 branches represent all different types of diverse population, the community, and yet all made out of one piece of gold. And the idea is that the Kohen Gadol has to illuminate and put that menorah on fire. And when did he do it? When did he do it? He did it in the evening. He did it during the evening time. The idea over here is that we all have a spark. We all have a part of that menorah in ourselves. Well, we need to get that menorah lit. We got to give off light, to shine, to sparkle. And especially when you're talking about in the evening, that's when the menorah was lit. Evening represents the time when there's darkness in the world. There's a lot of craziness going on today. All these shootings and the wars and all the other stuff that are going on. Seems like the world is getting darker and darker. It's getting worse and worse. And that's when the pasuk says that we have to light the menorah, meaning we have to concentrate and find that spark, that soul, that branch of that menorah of every Jew, and try to ignite it. And the one that does it is the Kohen Gadol. He's sort of in service of Hashem, giving us that extra energy and mood to go ahead and light. It's very easy to fall into desperation and hopelessness and saying, look what's going on. There's nothing we can do about it. But the answer is no, we have to light. We know that a little bit of light can take away lots of darkness. And therefore, we have to keep on putting on lights. If we put on lots of lights and we do a lot of lighting in the world, we will eventually overcome all the negativity and all the negative forces that are in the world. There's another very important also lesson of the Parsha in which the Jewish people were told again to do the Korban Pesach, and then there were some people that didn't have the opportunity to do the Korban Pesach because they were tamei, they were not clean, they couldn't bring the Korban Pesach, or they were in a faraway place. And the Torah tells them, if you are tamei or in a faraway place, you still have a second chance, and that is to bring the Korban Pesach on the second month. And the Rebbe takes this very strong message to tell us that it is never too late. It's never too late. We have always a chance and an opportunity to make up. Because the law, as interpreted, even if a person deliberately was tamei, or a person deliberately was away, so it means he has nobody to blame but himself. And yet, if he decides that he wants to do teshuvah, just 1 second, somebody's at the door here. If he decides that he wants to do teshuvah, hello? Sorry about that interruption. All right, I have to finish now anyways. It's 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. But if a person decides that he wants to do teshuvah, there's nothing to stop you, nothing to hold you back. And it doesn't matter how far you've gone. It doesn't matter how deep you are. This is what we learn from Pesach Sheni, that you always have a chance to go back. And this gives us the encouragement. Matter of fact, the opportunity when we do teshuvah, we can accomplish even more than some tzaddikim. We can reach and touch and get to a higher place, even than tzaddikim can, and we can accomplish. Because There's certain areas, if you're a tzaddik, you can't touch, you can't elevate. You can't eat not kosher food. You can't violate the Shabbos. You have to keep, but God forbid, if a person was not careful and did violate, and then he does real teshuvah, his aver is turned to mitzvahs. So he can reach and bring up even things that are further away from mitzvah. So that's the message. Hopefully we go in the right way. And if we make mistakes, we always know that there's a way to come back. And it's glad to be back with everybody again this week. And hopefully, Mitzvah Shem, next week, also 7 o'clock. Bezrat Hashem, we'll see everybody in good health and happiness. Stay
Fantastic.
well.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Good night.